نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. ربي زدني علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. آمين يا رحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Once again, alhamdulillah, we are studying the Quran, and we started from Surah Fatiha from the beginning, and now we are on Surah Baqarah on ayah number 177. We completed until 176 last week, and today we'll be doing ayah 177, and then inshallah next week we'll follow from here. We'll start with ayah 177. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون.
Okay, so we'll do the word by word meaning first. Laysa. Laysa is to negate something. It is not. That al-birra, the righteousness. Bir, we translate it as righteousness, but inshallah we'll go into more detail. Laysa al-birra, it is not the righteousness, or it is not just righteousness, that tuwallu, from waw, lam and ya, walaya, to turn to something. Tuwallu, that you turn. Wujuhakum, kum refers to all of you. Wujuh is a plural of wajah. Wajah is the face, and before that we learned in previous ayats, somewhere before, to turn your face towards the Qibla and turn your face towards the Kaaba. So that was wujuh, wajah, right? That face, turn your face. So it is not, righteousness is not just that you turn your faces, Qibla, towards the direction of al-mashriqi. Mashriq is the east, wal-maghribi, or the west. So righteousness is not just that you turn your faces towards the east and the west, walakinna, and but, al-birra, the righteousness, man, or the righteous, al-birra, the righteous, man, is he who amana, believes, from hamza mim and nun, amana, to believe, who believes billahi, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal yawmil akhiri, wa, and al yawma, the day, al akhir, the last, and the last day, meaning the akhirah, wal malaikati, and the angels. Malaika, the plural of malak. Malak is the angel. Malaika is the angels. So and the angels. So it's continuing from amana. Believe in what? Believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day and the angels. Wal kitabi, and the book. Al-Kitab here is, grammatically speaking, it's called ism jins, which means that it is the same word. It's used as a category, the name word for a category, meaning it can be used to refer to singular or plural, and it could also be used to refer to masculine or feminine. So in a nutshell, what ism jins means is it is used to refer to a whole category of things. So the book, it says the book, but it means all the books that were revealed. One Nabina, and the prophets. Nabina, the prophets. Okay. Wa atal mala, and so this was one category, that righteousness and but righteousness is the one who believes in what? Believes in all of these things, believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last day, the angels, the books, and the prophets. And now the next category, and he gives al mala, from the wealth, ala hubbihi, in spite of his love for it. Allah, that he has upon him, hubbihi, the love of what? He here refers to the love for it, meaning the love for the wealth. So he, the one who loves his wealth and yet he gives from it, he gives from his wealth. Gives to whom? Now there's a few categories of whom he gives it to. Zil Kurba, the one of those who are nearby, who are near. Kurba from Karib, like Karib, someone near, and Dil Kurba, those who are near. And it is this expression, Dil Kurba, is, or the Wil Kurba, is used to refer to the close relatives, like those who are related to us by blood or by or through marriage. So these are the near relatives to us. Wal Yatama, Yatama refers to from Yatim, like Yatama are the plurals. Sorry, is the plural for the orphan. So this is the orphans. So this person, what he does is he believes in all of these, and he gives from his wealth despite the love for his wealth, and he gives to who all? He gives to the orphans, to those who are near him, his relatives. He gives to the orphans. Wal masakina, and he gives to the masakin. Masakin is those who are in need, who are stuck in a certain position. Masakin comes from the combination of two words, masaka and sakana. So, and it refers to someone who is stuck at a place and he cannot move by himself from that place, because of whether he's stuck because of a debt that that person has, or any other situation that he's tied in, and he can't escape, or he can't get out of that situation by himself. So masakin is not just somebody who's poor. A poor person in Arabic is called a fukara, right? Somebody who's a very poor person as a masakin. Sorry. Sorry, did somebody say something? Okay. So masakin, a miskin is somebody more than somebody who's poor. It's not just a poor person. It also includes those people who might have some money, but they are stuck in a certain position because of something, and they might need some help to get out of that situation. And another category is wabna sabil. Wabna, ibn means the son of, as sabil, the path, right? So wabna sabil is the son of the path, and it's an expression used to say somebody who's traveling. Who's the son of the path? Is it the somebody who's traveling for a long time, or he's traveling for a long distance, or who has been traveling, or is a traveler for some time now? So, and the traveler was Sa'ilina, Sa'ilina from Sin, Wow, and La, somebody who asks, Sawal, to make a Sawal, to ask something. And As-Sa'ilina, the one who asks. So somebody who asks you, who outrightly comes and asks you for something. Wafir riqabi, and in freeing the necks. Riqab is from raqaba, is the back of a neck, like the slave would be, or an animal would be dragged by holding on the back of the neck and moved. And so somebody who's held from the back of their neck are somebody who's tied in and they're a slave of something because of the old kind slavery, which was there at the old times, or slavery in our times. It could be a financial slavery, like somebody is in so much of a debt that masakin could also include that, but here it is they can't move literally. They are stuck, and people, whoever controls them, can move them, and to free them is to free their neck, that they can now move themselves freely, right? So, but they are in slavery, in a particular kind of slavery. And now it's the next category. So this was the first category, believing in all of this, then giving the mal to, despite the love of their wealth, giving the wealth to all of these categories. Then the next category is وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ, and the one who establishes the prayer, وَآتَ الزَّكَاةَ, and gives the zakat, وَالْمُوفُونَ, and those who fulfill بِعَهْدِهِمْ, their covenants, all their promises that they have made, all the covenants that they made, إِذَا عَاهَدُوا, when they make it. Whenever they make a covenant, ahad, whenever they make a covenant, they fulfill those covenants. And what else? وَالصَّابِرِينَ, and the ones who are patient, who have patience, perseverance, they have sabr. At what times? Fil ba'sa'i, in the suffering. Ba's is suffering. Wad darra'i, and hardship. wahinal ba's, and at the time of stress. Wahina, wa is and hina at the time, al ba's of the stress. Ulaika, these are the ones, these are the people who, alladina are the ones who sadaqu. Sadaqa is to speak the truth, like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was called a Siddiq because he was the truthful one, right? And so a sadaqa, so sadaku is these people are the ones who are truthful. They are true to their claim. And what claim is that? That they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are true to their claim. Wa ulaika, and those humul muttaqun. They are the ones who are muttaqi. They are the people who have taqwa. So we are learning in this ayah, we are learning another definition or another way of looking at what is taqwa and how do we attain taqwa, and we also learning something about bir of what is bir. So first the whole translation, this ayah is saying righteousness is not just that you turn your faces towards east or the west, but true righteousness is in the one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets, and he gives wealth in spite of his love for it to relatives, orphans, needy, travelers, and those who ask for it, and for freeing the slaves. And also the one who establishes prayer, gives zakat, fulfills their promises when they make a promise, and those who are patient at the time of poverty, hardship, and during any kind of a battle. Those are the ones who have been true, and it is those who are righteous. So in this ayah, in previous verses before this, last couple of weeks, we learned about Tawheed, and the focus was on Tawheed, that you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And now we will learn about the essential requisites and also the implications of Tawheed. What happens, what does Tawheed look like, and what happens when somebody has Tawheed and everything. And faith, charity, prayer, sabr, akhlaq, keeping promises, these are all a part of our faith. These are all the implications. These are all the things that come out of Tawheed. And by saying these here, they are being introduced. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has introduced all these things to us is laisal birra, like by saying that belief and commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be discharged by just turning your face towards east or west. Yes, we have been talking about also in the last few ayat, a few ayat before, we have spent there was a few ayat talking about the direction of change of Qibla from Masjid al-Aqsa to the Haram, to Makkah, to the Kaaba Sharif. And yes, that was a big deal, but that is not the only thing that is demanded of you. True religion goes way beyond rituals, and it encompasses morals and attitudes that not just that impact our practical life, our day-to-day life, on how we should do things. And the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has introduced us to all these aspects of our faith is it shows, this ayah shows that Muslims should not just blindly follow certain rituals, and like previous community did, for example. They don't get involved in petty issues like previous communities, but strive to absorb the real spirit and essence of our deen. And otherwise, the claim that you have made for the love, that you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that you are committed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those claims do not hold much weight. They're hollow claims if they don't translate into these eventually. Eventually, this claim that you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this claim that you are a believer, this claim that you said when you said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, this claim comes with certain demands on you, comes with certain things that you will now have to fulfill. And those are the commands that we are looking at it right now, right? And those we learn about them. Also, before we start this ayah, just like we have a body and a soul, like our existence, we are a combination. We are not just the body, and we are not just a soul. We are a combination of both a body and a soul. Similarly, our ibadat, our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also has both a body and a soul. And if we concentrate on just one and leave the other, then there will be a disbalance. Just like in our bodies, in our physical life, if we just take care of our body and leave our soul, then we see a lot of materialism, we see a lot of consumerism, we see a lot of things in the society, for example, that we understand that these are not the right things in the society. And on other hand, if somebody just focuses on the soul and doesn't take care of their body at all, they will not be able to continue for long as well, because the body has its own needs. The body needs its rest. The body needs its rest. The body needs its nutrition. The body needs its time out, and the body needs it's like the mind. And if we study, after some point, we need our minds need a break. Our There are certain needs that our body has, and we need to fulfill those needs. When we need a washroom, we need a washroom. We cannot delay it for too long. You cannot just because you're studying, you cannot keep studying and you won't need the washroom after 1 hour. It doesn't work like that. Our body has its needs and they need to be fulfilled. We need to take care of them. Similarly, in our being, there is both a body and a soul of it. And if we focus on just one, then the other gets deprived. That there is a disbalance. So, for example, the Jewish kind of attitude was that they focused on rules a lot. They focused on fiqh a lot, and they went to super minute details of how something should be done and everything. And in doing that, in in an extreme focus on that, their focus went away from the soul, the attitude and the aptitude that one should have while doing worship, right? They were so bent upon everything should be prim and proper, everything should be like this, and like to the microscopic details. So, which what led to the losing of that soul. On the other hand, if you look at the Christian way of how it has developed over the years, is they looked at the soul and they said everything else didn't matter. So even today we hear from some people, for example, things like, oh, how does it matter whether you're praying 2 rakat or 3 rakat or 4 rakat? It's what is in the heart that matters. So it doesn't matter how many you're reading and this and that. But no, what Islam gives us is a balanced view of what is right and what is expected by us. And it is said regarding this ayah, there's a narration that Qatada radiallahu anhu said that it is mentioned to us that a man asked Allah's Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about righteousness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse. And before all faraid, which is like the compulsory deeds such as prayers, zakat, fasting, if a man has testified that there is none worthy of worship but Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a slave and his messenger. In other words, if a person has before doing all the faraid, but the person has said his kalima and he died professing that without getting a chance to do all of that, then he should go to paradise, inshallah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the High, revealed this verse. And this verse was revealed, and somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ about faith, that what is faith? And the Prophet ﷺ recited, somebody actually, going back to this, somebody asked Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu, after some time, that what is faith? And he recited this ayah. And then this person said, okay, but I didn't ask you what is birr, because this ayah says, Laysal birra. It doesn't talk about faith, it talks about al birr. And the person asked Abu Dhar that, okay, I asked you about faith, but you're telling me about birr. Why is that? And he said, this happened. This is actually exactly what happened at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Somebody came and asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is faith? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this ayah. And the person asked, okay, I asked you about faith. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this ayah, he replied this ayah, and he said that the faith is that when you do a good deed, then it makes you happy and you're optimistic that you will be rewarded for it. And when you do, and faith is when you do a deed which is not good, then it makes you sad and you are afraid of the punishment of it. So that is faith. And so to have faith, you need to know what is righteousness, because that's the practical implication of the faith. How will the faith come, right? So this ayah number 177 of Surah Baqarah, this ayah is also called ayat-e bir. And this is the ayah of goodness. In this ayah tells us what is the Islamic view and philosophy of ethics and goodness. Okay? And if you look at the word bir, it comes from ba, ra, and ra. Laisal birra. And this is also called ayat bir. So bir is an important word, and it's a very again, it's another one of those words which is deep words, and it has very deep connotations. And may Allah Ta'ala make us of the people who are able to give its right. So al-bir barara, it refers to, one of the meanings is it refers to someone who's been traveling in the sea for a long time. The sea which is turbulent. So if you imagine a sea which is turbulent, there are a lot of waves crashing here and there and everything. And this person has been traveling for a long time, and then this person steps on land And when he steps on land now, after being in the turbulent sea for so long, this person feels certain kind of contentment, certain kind of sukoon, certain kind of peace that and safety, that he is now safe about that, right? So this is called bir, right? So that the person is now happy and optimistic and has sukoon, feels safe, right? And so one definition of bir is a deed that makes you happy. Something when you do it that makes you happy, it makes you content, it makes you feel sukoon inside your soul, and you're optimistic. You have hopes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He'll reward you for it, that He'll accept it and He'll reward you for it. So that kind of a deed is bir. And from this very definition, if you look at this connotation, that somebody traveling in the sea and everything, and then feeling that contentment or sukoon, then some scholars have also said that if you look at this, then every other definition of goodness that we can see in this world, where we learn from our human minds, or our we learn from other places other than Wahi, other than the Quran, any other definition that we make for ourselves or we see of goodness is turbulent, like a sea is turbulent. And what does that mean is you might sink and you might swim through it as well, whatever might happen. But when you come to this definition that Allah Ta'ala is giving, which is of goodness, using the word al-bir, now this is the definition, and this is the path that will that means that when you come to this, you are stable, that you are set when you come to this. So this will give you a stable definition of goodness, some correct definition of goodness which you can rely on. So one connotation is this of bir. Another meaning of bir, where it comes from, is from barara, is also comes in the meaning of forest. A forest, which is, and a forest is never just a few trees planted. A forest is like a huge, vast piece of land. There's a lot of vastness in it, and there's a lot of trees all around it, and all different kinds of trees growing. In a forest, there are not just one kind of trees. Yes, there might be a majority of one kind of trees, but a forest has many different kinds of trees going on, many different kind of wildlife going on inside it, a lot of things going on inside it. And a bir is like a forest, a huge. So when we think of bir, there's an image of vastness, and there's an image of all different kinds of things going on, and very, very vast and very varied at the same time. Another implication of bir is, so by this we mean by bir is, first of all, that there are different kinds of goodness. There's not just one aspect to goodness, there is many different kinds of goodness. Another meaning of bir comes from uh, the it means to render someone what is rightfully due to them. So what it means is that we give the rights of someone that are due to them, and these could be the rights due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have certain rights that are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we give to Him. We have certain rights that are due to our parents. We have certain rights that are due to our children. We have certain rights that are due to our spouses, that are due to our neighbors, that are due to our community members, that are due to, if we are an employee, that are due to our employer. If we are an employer, then they are due to our employees. So, and to the other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have certain rights that are due to others through our agreements, through our treatises that we make with each other. And in this context, there are some words which are used in Arabic terminologies, like there's a term called barra bil walidayhi, right? An obedient son, a son who's obedient. Walidayhi, bil walidayhi is towards the parents. Barra bil walidayhi is a son who is obedient towards his parents, meaning he would give the rights of his parents. And another term which is used in Arabic language is barra bil kasam, like to fulfill the kasam. Kasam is the oath. So somebody who fulfilled the oath would call, they would say that he's barra bil kasam, like he fulfilled the kasam that he made and everything. And another thing beautiful about bir is, one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes from barara, is al-bar. One of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-bar, which means that He is the source of all goodness. He is the benefactor. His kind and gracious goodness is shown on all of His creation, and He is the doer of good, and all good comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And Imam Al-Qurtubi said about this, that Al-Bar is the one who does not stop his ihsan, meaning his good behavior, because of the sins and disobedience of his slaves. Just because we do sins, or we disobey him at certain times, he is, because he's al-bar, he does not stop his goodness because of our behavior. He does ihsan towards us all the time. And Ibn Hajar al-Haytami said, Al-bir is a unique word. It entails all acts of righteousness and good conduct. So Razi said about Al-Bar, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is the one who is kind to wrongdoers. He pardons transgression. He forgives the sinners. He turns to the one who repents to Him. He accepts the plea of those who ask Him, and he has turned to his slaves with praiseworthy actions and good expectations, while he is the most deserving of them. So, in short, the name Al Bar tells us about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He will, just like Al Bar for us, it means somebody who completes all the promises and who completes all the rights that are due to another person. When it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al Bar, it means that He will fulfill all promises that He has given us to His servants through the Quran or through the Sunnah, through the Hadith, whatever promises that we know. For example, one of the promises that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us is, if you are grateful, I will give you more. These are the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so, and whenever he made us a promise, and he said another promise that we learned through the Sunnah is that charity will not decrease you. Like if you give charity, and subhanallah, even if whether it is Muslims or non-Muslims, when we speak to someone who's very charitable, we will know that they say, never will we find a person who's charitable and who said, I gave this much in charity and because of this my wealth went down. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens door to more and more risk for anybody who gives more charity. Anybody who gives more, this is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He fulfills all His promises that He has given to His servants, and He will grant us whatever rights He has prescribed upon Himself, both in this world and in the next. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us certain promises for this world, and He has also made us certain promises for the next world. And by looking at the promises that He fulfills for us in this world, we can also increase our confidence. And yes, we should all have iman, but there are things that increase our iman. And when we see these promises coming true, when we see these promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being manifested in front of us, then they increase our iman, and rightly so. And we understand that He's Al-Bar. He fulfills all the promises, and He fulfills the promises in both this world and the next. In the next also, He will fulfill the promises that He has given to us as believers through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the kind of promises that He had made to us. And obviously, coming from Bara Rabir is Abrar. Abrar are the people who are the righteous ones, the people who do righteous deeds, who have righteousness. May Allah Ta'ala make all of us amongst them and all of our loved ones as well. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Laisal birra an tuwallu wujuhakum qiblal mashriki wal maghrib. That righteousness is not just that you turn your faces towards the east and or the west. So here, there are few meanings that different scholars have taken out of this. First thing is, whenever we speak of direction, generally speaking, in our speech, in any language, when we are speaking of direction, we usually refer to as east or west. We say, oh, east, I went, whether you go east or west, this is the best thing ever, right? Or general sense of direction, rarely we say north or south, mostly we say east or west in common language terms. So that is one implication, that any direction, and a phrase to east or west is an expression to mean any direction. That to turn your faces towards any direction is not just righteousness, there's more to righteousness. And another implication here is that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that it refers to that salah, that it's not just that you turn your face towards a direction, pray salah. That is not just righteousness, but righteousness is that you know what you're reading in your salah and you actually follow it. Like you follow what the Quran teaches you and you follow that in your life. That is righteousness. It's not just turning yourself and your faces, it's turning your whole lifestyle towards it. That's a part of it, part of righteousness. And another implication of mentioning al-Mashriq and al-Maghrib is obviously the point of Yahud and Nasara that we learned. And that what happened was, we know that the people at that time, Yahud, who were in Medina at that time, they used to pray towards Baitul Maqdis, and so did the Christians of that time. And even today we know that they turn towards that side and worship. But Yahud, what they do is they worship towards the Maghrib side of it. And the Nasara, Maghrib, which is the Yahud, they pray towards the Maghrib, which is the west side of it, and the Nasara pray towards the eastern side, which is of the Baitul Maqdis, the same compound. They face the same masjid in Al-Aqsa, but they face the different sides of it. And Nasara, the Christians, they face the Mashriq side of it, which is the eastern side of it. And both of them say, okay, you are wrong, you are wrong. They call each other wrong. So basically, they fight amongst themselves, but they're all facing around the world. They're facing the same direction, but they're still fighting about it. So they're being petty about it. They're finding petty things and fighting about it. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us is that it is not just that you keep fighting about the direction, and it's also not that you ignore direction altogether, because direction is also important. Because previous previous ayat, like we said, we talked about the direction, and Muslims were told to change the direction of prayer from Baitul Maqdis towards the Kaaba. And so the direction is very important, of course. But then once you learn about one thing in the deen, and we are learning some another thing about our deen is, when you learn one thing about the deen, don't become so obsessed about it that you forget everything else about the deen. Our deen is a balanced deen, and everything goes together. There are a lot of things that go together, hand in hand. You don't become focused on one thing and leave out all the rest. That is not what Islam teaches you, right? So we are not, Islam doesn't teach us to be extremist in doing one particular kind of good, and neither in doing excessive measurement about something. Don't do too much, like you don't measure like everything in milligrams or this and that. Don't do so much of measurement about everything. And also, on the other hand, don't go to the other extreme of doing whatever you wish and thinking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim. He'll forgive me no matter what I do and what I do. No, that is not. Uh, Islam teaches us a balanced way, and we should follow a balanced way. And the way to define goodness, first of all, is how do we not define goodness, right? So if we look at different people in society around us, in every society, we'll find different kind of people. There are criminals, there are people who are doing good, there are people who are doing good deeds, there are people who are philanthropists, there are people who are very religious, there are people who are somewhere in between and everything. There are people who are regarded as very noble people of the society. There are also people who are regarded as very like outcasts and things like that. So in every society, no matter where we go in the world, we'll find different kinds of people. And if we look at a little bit at the psychology of or how these people operate, is first of all, if you look at criminals in a society, no matter where in the world we are, wherever there are criminals, when we know that somebody has a criminal background or something, then nobody likes to or wants to associate with them. They are openly known as fasik, or people who are doing bad deeds, or these people, like they're engaged in a lot of harmful things. They're harming other people or other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're doing a lot of injustices. Now there are all these people in the world, and we know about that. But even if we look at these people, are do these people do any good at all, right? So for example, a thief, if there is a thief, many thieves, they would not steal in their own neighborhood, or give all money to like or they a lot of thieves, what we learn is they are fair to each other. They are like, they are engaged in, like, there's some people who are engaged in smuggling, or they are engaged in like illegal things or something, but they are amongst their own group, they are very true to their word and everything, which is a good quality. Being true to their word is a good quality. But they are doing this other things, which are they're stealing and everything. Or what they do is, sometimes we also find that people who steal a lot, but then they spend a lot of that money on the poor as well. Like, say they steal a lot of money, and then they are they're stealing so much, and then they're spending a lot of it. They're so charitable, they're doing so much good for poor people and everything. They're feeding a lot of people who are hungry. They're doing a lot of things. So which kind of confuses us. Okay, what is going on here, right? And what is the status of this person? And first of all, the first thing is, what we learn is, the urge to do good is present in every single human being. Even somebody who's has been raised in the most pervert atmosphere, even that person will have the urge to do some good, right? So goodness is in our fitra. Every single person, no matter how unjust or even oppressive a person is, they would want to do something good. So even Hitler, for example, we know he did so many crimes and everything, but they also say that Hitler used to love children, right? He had this thing in him that he used to love children. And so there was one good quality in him. So loving children is a good quality. There is goodness in it. Yet he was doing all these harmful things, and killing people and doing all these things on the other side. And sometimes we hear a lot of things in by people doing a lot of bad things as well, that okay, I'm just doing this to get justice for people, right? And they feel they're doing justice, but then to do this, a lot of people are engaged in many countries and many places around the world. We find them giving bribes and saying and justifying it, that it is all for a good cause, it's all to get justice for something, and I have to do that and everything. But the thing is, Islam does not endorse this Robin Hood mentality either. That mentality that I'll steal from the rich and I'll give to the poor and I'll become. Islam does not endorse that, right? There is goodness, but we cannot make our own parameters of goodness. So that kind of parameter is not acceptable in Islamic view of goodness. Another category of people are the people who are considered good. They are considered like nice people and everything, and they do a lot of community service. They do a lot of and they do a lot of acts of worship as well. They are supposed to be like, we look up at them like, oh, they're very nice people and they're religious at well and everything. But we see that those same people, on the other hand, at sometimes they have a race to do wrong things as well. They're not just there's a lot of lying involved. There's a lot of unofficial or customs, or there's a lot of showing off, for example, or backbiting at some points, or a lot of sarcasm to other people, or putting down other people. And you see, like, sometimes we see these people, and then may Allah forgive us and not make us one of them. And if we are them and we don't see that for ourselves, then may Allah cure us and bring us to the right path. That such people are on two boats at the same time. They are so somebody, what they would do is, they would somebody like running a liquor store. There's a Muslim who's running a liquor store, and then from that money of that liquor store, they're giving a lot of donation in the masjid, and they're like, oh, I did a lot of things and everything. And so in a way they have or somebody who, what they do is, they sponsor, or they get people kidnapped and do these things at one side, and they're praying on the other side. So they do a lot of prayer and everything. And in their own mind, what they've done is, they've made two paths for themselves, and they've kept it for themselves. That for example, when some trouble comes, they would like, okay, let's sacrifice an animal, or let's do some extra worship, or let's go and visit a masjid, or let's give all these donations and everything. And other times they're involved in a lot of illegal acts as well. But they are known as, they have this face of in the society of very respectable people. Now that again is very dangerous, because we cannot make our own parameters of what is good. And then also, we cannot just have a person who's on both two boats at the same time. It's very dangerous, and it's like the danger of sinking is very, very, very high there, because like in their own minds, they've considered themselves good, because everybody wants to do things that they think is good, right? So in their mind, they think, okay, I'm doing good. And if even if I run a liquor store or something, so what? Whatever the money I get, I'm donating all of this here. I'm doing all of this good thing, so it must be really good. Another category of people is that some people who might be considered as people of very high status in religious terms, like they might even be people having some religious leadership, like religious teachers or imams or hafiz even, or many different they're very particular about their rituals. They're like how to pray, and the length of their beard or length of their pants or what they're doing, and they're very, very particular about that. But at the same time, though, some of those people, we might find they're very, very low in their akhlaq with people, in their manners with people. They are not, they don't have empathy when they're dealing with people. You find that some of them, they don't have much empathy with people, or their behavior towards a person might have a very might be considered very religious or pious and everything, but their behavior towards their own wife in the confines of their home is not a very good behavior. They're very, very harsh with their wife. And outside, it might seem like they're very religious and very God fearing, but then inside their personal lives, under the wraps, it's not a very good thing, or they're not very caring towards their parents or something like that. So that again, just because they are praying does not make them good either, right? So that is also an incomplete sort of a thing, and something that is not an Islamic view of goodness. Another category and is that somebody who could be elites of a certain society. They're called the cream of a society, any society. They're considered trendsetters or professionals, and this includes people like people who have PhDs, people who are doctors, people who are surgeons. They're at their peak in terms of, they're considered at their peak in education, in financial status, or fame or anything else. And usually they're considered, people look up to them in different ways, both in terms of like they're very intelligent, they're considered very intelligent, they're considered very smart, and they're considered very, they're in very noble professions and things like that. So people look up to them. And in their lifestyles, generally, if you look at the fraternity, and again, this is a general thing, not about any one particular person or any few people. This is a general thing. If we look at that fraternity, we'll find that the akhlaq and the ethics are very much highlighted, meaning they're very good. Generally, they have very good manners. They're polite, and they know they're soft spoken. They're generally punctual. You'll find a lot of good qualities in such people, because they're looked up to all the time, right? And when we talk about human rights and things, they are a lot in the forefront, and they are, like, if you talk about the rights of the body or the rights of people around, and they're generally very and they have good opinions about things, some things, and you can have intelligent conversations with them, and they're generally caring, or they're generally giving to the society in different things, and they are looked up to in a lot of different things. But many times in this particular group of people itself, you'll find that they would say, no, no, religion is a very personal matter. You talk to them about religion, and a lot of them would say, okay, you know what, and let's just concentrate on science. Why would you talk about religion and all that? Is this even relevant? Do we even need it? Right? What's the point of all of this? Like, let's just continue an intellectual discourse and all of these things. Who needs to? And again, if even if there is something like a religion, it's a very personal matter. So you have your own, I have my own. We don't really need to discuss it. We don't really need to talk about it or to practice it. I'm a good person, and I'm doing good thing and everything, and that's good enough. I don't need anything else. So people have those kind of mindsets as well. So every group of people, if we see whatever they're doing, they're happy with it. And of course, that's why they're continuing, because they're happy with it. And some people do just one kind of, they do one kind of goodness, they do one kind of bir, they will do one kind of sneaky, one kind of goodness, and they ignore everything else, right? So for example, there could be one person who's really, really good to his mother, but he's horrible to his wife. Or a person who's really, really good to his wife, but he's horrible to his mother. Now that it, just because he's extra nice to his wife does not compensate to the fact compensate for his being mean to his mother, or the other way around. He needs to be good to both, right? So a person cannot, in terms of an Islamic point of view, a person cannot just study, 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 and ignore everything else. Or a person cannot do just jihad, 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 or just charity, 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 and ignore everything else. Yes, we could be a bit more lean towards one thing, that's fine, but we cannot ignore everything else, and we cannot have a view of goodness based on our own minds. We have to have view of goodness based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And how is that? So for example, and I might have quoted this example before, but for example, there's a person who joins a job and everything. I get a job, I go and start working for the job. Employed my employer tells me, okay, you what you need to do is you are at the reception, that's your job, you're my admin assistant. So what you would be doing is you would be taking calls, and your job is basically to make call whenever there's any incoming calls, you have to answer all the calls. And when any visitors come to my office, you have to talk to them and tell them about our services, and then you have to sign them up and whatever else. And this is what your job is. And then whenever you're free, you could also do the notice boards and everything, and you can and we also look at how clean, like we keep our office and everything. So that's also, you can also take care of that, and in your job. And what I do is, once I join the job, I don't take a single call. When any visitor comes to my office, I don't attend to them, I don't talk to them, but I'm busy in maintaining the notice board. It is like the most beautiful and well maintained notice board in like the whole of the city. And I keep my office super clean. Like, I'm always cleaning my desk, and I'm always cleaning my the all the office cabinets are so well maintained, everything is so perfectly done. What happened after some time? What happens if I keep doing that? 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 days, a week passes, 2 week passes, then eventually, my employer, if he's very kind, he let it go that far. But eventually, at certain point, my employer will talk to me, and then I'll be told, okay, I will not be staying in that job for long if I continue that. Because what is my main purpose of my job? My main purpose of my job is the to follow the tasks and the priorities that my employer gave me, and that is my job here, and that's what the thing I'm supposed to do. In terms of our worship, in terms of our faith, in terms of our righteousness, who we worship is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides how we need to worship Him. We don't decide that. And our priorities are also set by Him. He defines what is true faith, what is true goodness, how do we do things, and what is true what is bir, how do we define it, and what is our priority as well, what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and not the other way around. And how does he place them? We need to follow his lead. And how will we follow his lead? Through the Quran. And here in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us a comprehensive view of what is goodness and how we need to follow it. And that's why it's called Ayat Bir. And subhanAllah, there's so many beautiful things and lessons in this that um, I felt that we should concentrate on just this rather than skipping over it and going to the other ayahs. And I for myself as well and for all of us, inshallah. So the first thing, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines it, is that it is not just that you turn your faces towards Mashriq or Maghrib. So that is included. Yes, that is a part of it. First of all, you can't ignore that either. Your direction of where you pray, your direction of worship, your loyalties, yes, they do matter, and they do definitely matter, but that is not all. But bir is actually the beginning part, the first part. How does bir begin? The first thing from her is the one who, first of all, you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The foundation, the root of all goodness is the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the seed, that is the root of everything. Like in Surah Ibrahim, I'll let you see. In Surah Ibrahim, ayah number 24 till 27, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, see you not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets a parable, a goodly word as a goodly tree, whose root is firmly fixed, and its branches reach to the sky, that is very high. It gives its fruit at all times by the leave of its Lord, and Allah sets forth parables for mankind in order that they may remember. And the parable of an evil word is that of an evil tree uprooted from the surface of her earth and having no stability. Allah will keep firm those who believe with the word that stands firm in this world. That is, they will keep on worshipping Allah alone and none else, and in the hereafter. And Allah will cause to go astray those who are zalimeen. And Allah does what He wills. So basically, what this also tells us is that the word, the kalima, when we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that is the foundation. That is a good word, which is a foundation. Just like a seed gives roots and then it grows into a tree, and then that tree bears fruits and everything, but the beginning of everything is that seed which is there. So the foundation of everything, of all goodness, of real goodness. Now again, there might be people in the world who we see, who we think are doing good things, who according to us, from the look of it might look like a good thing. But if it is not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it is not rooted, if goodness is not rooted in the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is it's a goodness on a very shaky ground. Like a tree, like these two trees, if we think of that, one tree has a very stable root, very strong and stable roots, and that tree is firmly grounded no matter what, how many storms come or what come. If the roots are very, very strong, the tree doesn't go anywhere. The branches move and everything with the wind a little bit, but the tree overall stays firm. As opposed to that, if there is a tree which is uprooted, the roots are not in the ground, any little storm that comes, it will take it away anywhere. It'll fly away anywhere. That goodness, it might look like it is very strong, but that it is not really strong at all. It's just show. It's just an outer packaging. It's not a very strong thing which does not have any root or a foundation. So in today's religious terms, if we think about it, there are two kinds of deeds. There are good deeds and there are righteous deeds, right? And good deeds are those that people consider good. And there could be people who are feeding a lot of animals, they're doing a lot of animal care and animal rescue or everything. They're running a lot of orphanages, feeding, taking care of orphans, or sending aids to people, going, give peace to a person who's, all these things that when people do, they attain certain sort of peace inside them also. And all people, no matter what race or religion they belong to, they feel certain kind of peace when they do good deeds. So for example, a lot of people question about what is going to happen to Mother Teresa, like if she did not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will happen to all the good deeds that she did in this world? What will happen to that? And there are so many non-Muslims, if we think about it, like so many people ask, there's so many non-Muslims and they do so many good deeds. What's going to happen? Like are they going to lose all their good deeds about it? What's going to happen about them? As opposed to that, a righteous deed is something, it's not essential that that righteous deed will make you feel good about yourself. A righteous deed might be something that challenges you to the core, that's something that disturbs you to the core, and yet it's righteous in the sense that it is something that will be righteous by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes, and you don't feel like doing it, yet you force yourself to do it sometimes because you're like, you feel, you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those deeds. And what this ayah teaches us is that we need to convert our good deeds to our righteous deeds. And how do we do that? By belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by expecting the reward of what we do from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first thing, when our goodness starts with belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means that we are doing it, good deeds we do. There might be two people who are feeding, let's say, homeless people. There are two people around the city who, both of them are going around feeding homeless people, doing different things, but one of them is doing it for the sake of Allah. One of them is doing it because they think it's a good thing to do, and they like to do it, they feel good when they do it and everything, and both are doing good deeds, but only one of them is doing a righteous deed. Why? Because the person who's doing a righteous deed while he's feeding the orphan or while he's feeding the homeless, he is not expecting somebody to click their picture and put it on a thing and saying that, okay, this person did so many good deeds. They are not expecting that homeless person to then say thank you to them and everything. If he says, that's good, there's no harm in that as well. If the other person says thank you, then we accept it graciously. It's like, you're welcome, and then we move ahead. But if the person does not say thank you or just takes the food and goes away, we don't feel like we have not been acknowledged, because we were not doing it for their sake anyway. Yes, you're giving it to the person, but we were doing it to get the reward. Our reward was not from this person or the media or our friends or the people, or when we show that such a big, that our business, for example, donates such a big check, and then because of that publicity we'll get so much more business because we are such a philanthropic business. We are not doing it for any of those reasons. Why are we doing that good deed? We are doing, and we are not ashamed or shy of that either. Excuse me. It's not that if somebody comes to know of it, we get like a bit uncomfortable and we get like, oh no, why did somebody find out about it? I wanted to keep it a secret. We try to hide our good deeds, but then if somebody knows about it, that's fine. It doesn't make a difference to us. And but the thing is, our primary aim of it is that we are doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the other person who's not doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they haven't even asked for Jannah, then sometimes what we do is, the other person is not even asking for Jannah, but we want to forcefully send them to Jannah. We want to be like, yeah, Allah, like what will be happen to those people? Those people themselves don't even want it. They're not even worried about, they're not asking Allah. They're doing these good things, but they're not even asking Allah Ta'ala for forgiveness or for Jannah or for rewards anyway. They're not asking Allah Ta'ala for rewards. But sometimes, and it's a good thing, but sometimes we are too eager to have other people get rewards that we forget that rewards are in Allah's hands, and these people themselves need to. Yes, we should and we must pray for people who are around us and near us, and all humanity, in fact. But the people themselves need to open, like we said before in one of the previous ayat, the door of the heart opens from inside, and people need to open their door, the door of their heart by themselves from their inside. We can try, we can knock, we can give the message, we can keep giving the message again and again and again in different ways, but then they will have to do that one part of opening the door. They will have to do it themselves. They will have to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but whether it is starting from saying the shahada or then all the other good deeds that follow along with it. And There was a hadith, for example, from the hadith that somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ about Hatim Tai. Like, Hatim Tai was one of the a very famous person in the Arabian Peninsula who was very, very, very generous and charitable, like before Islam. And he used to give a lot of charity. In fact, he was famous in the sense that anybody who came to him would never and asked for something, he would never go from his house without getting something. Nobody would come to his house unless except that he would give them something. Anybody who would ask for anything, he would just make sure. And he was very, very generous, and he was very well off as well, and very, very generous with everything. Like, he would make sure he would help anybody he could help, and he was very, very well known for it. In fact, so much so that he was well known for it for centuries, for a long, long time. And even a lot of us now have heard the name of Hatim Tai in our stories and everything. And even a lot of sayings are famous with the name of Hatim Tai, like as generous as Hatim Tai. And somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ, what will happen to Hatim Tai? Will he go to Jannah? What will happen to all those good deeds, or what the things that he did and everything? And the Prophet ﷺ replied that he didn't once ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or for Jannah, although he fed so many people. So what does that mean? That we need to ask first of all for ourselves before, when we learn the Quran. It is first for ourselves before we try to judge anybody else, and we should not judge anybody else at all. Obviously, the part is to improve ourselves and then to share the message in the right light with everybody else as well. That first of all, that we need to keep asking. When we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what naturally comes after that is that we ask for forgiveness, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His pleasure. That we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka ridak. Ya Allah, I ask you for your pleasure. I ask that you are pleased with me. Ya Allah, I ask that you are pleased with me. Allahumma inni as'aluka ridaka. Ya Allah, I ask you, definitely, inni, I as'aluka, I ask you, Allahumma inni as'aluka ridaka, for your pleasure. I ask you for your pleasure, right? And we can think of this is that our intention, why we are doing something. And that is something like, if there's a parcel, there's an address on that parcel, right? And the parcel that is given to a courier company will only be delivered to the address which is there. It will not go beyond that address, right? So our intentions are like the address on the parcels. And if we put the address of wherever we put the address for, that's where it's going to go. If somebody wants to be famous, to be well known by people, to be known by people, to be liked by people, to be loved by people, for the good they're doing, then that is what they will get. But if they haven't even asked for the pleasure of Allah, then that's not what they're going to get. Because if and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-bar, in the sense that He will not stop the goodness of this world coming to that person. Like, that person who's very charitable will get that recognition, will get that love of people, will get those things. But if he never asked for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he didn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is not, the parcel is not going to go beyond the address that we have put on it. Any deed that we do, and that's why the hadith book, the most famous book of hadith, Sahih Al Baqarah, it begins with the first hadith which is there from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is that our actions, the reward of our actions, are based on our intentions. What is our intention? Right? And on the flip side, there are also some people who said that they love Allah so much that they deny themselves worldly things. Like, some people, they became nuns, or they became priests, and they said, no, we will not have marriages, and we will not marry anyone and everything, and you're not supposed to marry, and we will not marry, we'll devote ourselves to the Lord. And then there's so much fitna that if we look at the history, we don't even need to speak much about it. There's so much history that we know about from these groups of people who deny themselves halal pleasures. And when they deny themselves halal pleasures, then uh, the human needs are human needs. When they deny themselves something that Allah Ta'ala did not ask them to deny, then they fell into the fitna of haram, which Allah Ta'ala had told them not to do, and they ended up doing those things and everything. So yes, we have to do good, but we have to do good in a balanced way, in a way that Allah Ta'ala told us, and we have to keep that balance. Um, we don't have to be so passionate and so much like excited about doing something that we go overboard in anything. a lot of the times, a lot of us have good intentions, but we become so overboard. May Allah Ta'ala protect me and all of us from it. And it is something that all of us do. It's not just one person or the other. All of us, and all of us are human beings. We are full of, we do. And yes, we do mistakes, and it doesn't mean that we stop doing things or we become too scared of doing any good. That, of course, when like there is a saying that a person who does something, that's the only person who will make mistakes. So when we go out to do good, when we go out to do some person, or we get up to do something for the sake of Allah, of course we will do mistake. Why will we do mistakes? Because we are a human being. We are human beings. That is our nature. We are not perfect. We don't have perfect knowledge. We don't have perfect wisdom. We don't have perfect resources. We don't have perfect intelligence. We don't have perfect capacities or ability to do something. We don't have perfect situations. We have a lot of other demands on our time. And when we are irritated, we are irritated. We cannot function in a very calm manner all the time. We cannot be perfect all the time. And yes, of course, we will do that. And that is there. The purpose of learning these ayat or learning about the balance is not to say that if you don't have perfect balance, don't do anything. It is, the purpose is for us to learn that when we are starting to tilt in a little, on a little side, which we will, which each one of us will, at different times we'll find ourselves tilting to one side or the other side. The point is that whenever we, our vehicle takes a little detour off the highway, we recognize it and we come back. Right? The purpose is for us to keep coming back and throughout our lives until the last breath. In fact, it is said that on our last breaths, whenever a person is on their last breath, Shaitan tries the hardest to, like he'll come in the face of people who have passed away before us, our older generation, our parents, or somebody else who's passed before us, and he'll come in that form and say, all this is a lie, this all Islam thing and everything. I've seen the other side now, and he will come to us in that form and say, no, denounce your faith now and everything. And some people might fall for it. So he'll try the hardest because he knows once the soul is out of the body, then that's done. The chapter's closed. Now he can't do anything. He has no control. If a person dies on shahada, he dies on shahada. Now Shaitan has no control. He tries the hardest at that time when a person is later. But what it means is, why is Shaitan trying? Shaitan is trying because there's still a capacity to go here and there until our last breaths. There is still a capacity to go until we see the angel of death ourselves. When the angel of death who's come, we see the Malikul Maut, we see that angel. Till then, we could go either way. So first of all, we should keep asking Allah Ta'ala to protect us and keep asking Allah Ta'ala to forgive us and keep checking ourselves. So the purpose of the ayat of the Quran are not to scare us off from good deeds. The purpose is, while doing good deeds, we know our balance and we find out and we learn which way, how Allah Ta'ala wants us to go. And anytime we find ourselves tipping to one side, we can pull ourselves back, inshallah, and before we go too far. So anytime we find a little deviation, bring ourselves back very quickly, right? And so how do we do good deeds that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do we know something that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are the good deeds? Is how to do them correctly is to do them in the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all prophets before them came to their people to teach them what? To teach them what is a good deed, how to do it, how much to do it, when to do it, with whom to do it. All these things are taught by the religion. The deen teaches us all of this. All of this is a part of deen. What is deen? Deen is a way of life. It teaches us all those things. It's not just, deen is not just the name of salah and zakat and everything. There is much more to it, right? And all of these things are a part of the deen. And only the Quran and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam can tell us what true goodness is. And through wahi, that, and even the Prophet ﷺ did not invent these things by himself. He told us through the wahi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to him, right? And another thing is through, so we, another thing is, who can give us the perfect standard of goodness, like the standards of goodness? If we look at all of us, any of us, we can never be totally unbiased or fair, right? For example, there is a government who always wants people to give a lot of taxes and a lot of benefit, and wants to do to be able to do the least and get the maximum amount of taxes out. The people, on the other hand, want a lot of benefits, but they don't want to pay as much taxes, right? And there's a tussle between the two, right? Both of them are a bit biased towards their position whenever they make any demands or something to the other. There's a bit of tussle there. An employer and employee. Employer wants the person to work a lot and to be able to pay the least. The employee wants to work the least but get paid the most. between the husband and wife, there's a thing that husband wants a lot of things which are husband's rights, and a wife wants a lot of things to go in a way in the family to be done in a way that are things are better for her and things are more leaning towards her. There's a bit of a thing between teacher and a student. A teacher wants things certain way, and students want things certain way. Students want a lot of break and not too much studies and this and that, and teacher wants to teach a lot of things and the students to be very obedient and everything. Between parent and a child, there's a lot of tussle. So in all of our dealings, in all of our human relationships and dealings that we see from around us, there's a lot of negotiations, and there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a bias that is unavoidable. There is when we so for example, as a woman, when I'm speaking to another woman who's going through a hard phase of her life, and she's talking about some troubles that she's behaving, my sympathies directly go to her, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, and like some people trouble, and like women have so much to deal with and everything. As opposed to that, if I speak to a man who's talking about some troubles that he's having with his wife and this and that, I will listen to him, but that at the back of my mind, there'll be something like, you know what, maybe he's not telling me the whole story. Maybe, like usually men are this, and usually, like he must have done something for, even if the wife is doing something wrong, he must have done something to incite her. I'm sure he's not telling me the whole story. That it will be, as much as I deny it, try to put it down or try to be unbiased or something, it will come to my mind at some point. It will come, those things will come, because I am who I am, and I have certain kind of like, it is not possible to be 100% unbiased or 100% fair. The only one who can be 100%, who can have a perfect standard of goodness, who is not the only entity who is not bound by any of these biases, who is not into any of these situations, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us agreeable standards, and which are fair in all things, fair and good in all ways. You're right, like in all aspects, things which are good. And how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us? Through wahi, through the revelation that how does the wahi come to us? The angels bring it to us through the book to the nabi, right? So all these three things become a part of malaika, the kitab, and the prophets. All three are together in a revelation. When we are learning the Quran, we're trying to follow the Quran, then we are following all of these three, right? Another thing is, when we are saying belief in Allah and belief in the Yawm al-Akhir, or in the Akhirah, there's one point that scholars have taken, that to do good, there are many motivations to do good, and obviously the biggest motivation is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some people had a very high standard for this. For example, one of our predecessors, Rabi al Basri, what she used to do was, she would go out of the house carrying, in one hand she had a lamp of like a candle or a lamp which was burning, and on the other hand she had water. And figuratively speaking, she would speak to people. When people would speak to her, why is she walking like that, she would say that if I see Jannah, then I'll use this fire to burn it, and if I see Jahannam, then I'll put this water and to extinguish the fire of Jahannam. Because if Jannah and Jahannam are no more there, then people would worship Allah for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of Jannah or Jahannam. And that is, yes, that is a legitimate thing, but that we should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But not everybody, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of us as diverse, and not all of us think or act and or have the same kind of motivations. Some of us would, when they learn about the hellfire, and we learn about the punishments of the hellfire, and we learn about Jahannam, and the painful punishments of Jahannam. May Allah Ta'ala protect from us all from, and all our loved ones from it. Then we want to do good deeds to protect ourselves from Jahannam. There might be some person who might be like, you know what, I learned all this about Jahannam and it really scares me, and I really don't want to go there. And I do all these good deeds hoping that Allah Ta'ala will protect me from Jahannam. There's another person who is like, who learns about some pleasures of Jannah, and they're like, wow, you know what, you can get this in Jannah, you can get that in Jannah. They're like, okay, you know what, this will happen in Jannah. And then even a blade of grass would be so beautiful, and in Jannah you would not need to rest, you will never feel tired in Jannah, you will never feel sweaty in Jannah, you will never like your homes. There's no dirt in Jannah. There's no job to be done in Jannah. There's no cooking to be done. There's no cleaning to be done. There's no employment to be done. There's no thing that you have to do in Jannah. Anything you do is for your own pleasure, that you want to do it. And you'll have servants upon servants. You'll have like an army of servants serving you and everything, and whatever you want, you just think about it and you get it. And all the fruits of Jannah will be just so delicious, and they will be and every time you eat them, every bite you eat them, they'll get more and more delicious. You'll never get bored of anything or anyone. And you'll have the markets in Jannah, where you will go and you'll meet people. You'll have gatherings in Jannah. You'll have people of Jannah who will be close to each other in Jannah. You When we go to Jannah, none of us will have any friction in our hearts, even a minutest friction in our hearts against anybody else. In this world, it is possible that there are two people who are believers, yet they have some tussle between themselves, and they don't particularly see eye to eye about something, and they don't get along with each other, and they try to avoid each other as much as possible. Or they might even have some arguments about different things, or they might have had a fight even about certain things, or everything. Yet those two same people in Akhirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might decree when they go to Jannah, they will be like brothers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put love in our hearts and remove any friction or anything that we have in our hearts against each other. All that rancor, all that will that anybody has against each other, that will be removed from our hearts. So somebody might want that. Somebody might want to say, you know what, I love that about Jannah. I love that about Jannah, that all our relationships will be so beautiful, whether it's parent and a child. And I love about Jannah that everybody would be the same age group, and everybody would be in youth, and there'll be no old age, and there'll be no death, and there'll be no disease. And in Jannah, everybody, like, I'll be able to meet all my previous generations and my coming generations that come after me, and we'll all be in the same age of youth, and we can all like hang out together, we can all like party together, we can all do things, and that everything will be halal. There's no such, I don't have to look for ingredients or anything. I don't have to look for anything. Everything is, I can say, do, eat, drink, anything. And I won't even feel the inclination towards anything which is there. And so I really desire Jannah, and I want to do all these good deeds that Allah Ta'ala likes, because I want to go to Jannah. Then here, by saying Amana billahi wal yawmil akhiri, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is a legitimate and acceptable motivation. So just because any of us has a higher motivation, or has a motivation that I want to do something for the sake of Allah, don't, when we speak to other people, don't expect everybody to be at the same wavelength as you. Different people have different personalities and different motivations. There are different things that motivate different people, and all these motivations are legitimate and acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the end, when we are thinking about akhirah, when somebody is thinking about akhirah and that they want to go to Jannah and not and be protected from hellfire, then also they are affirming, through that they are affirming their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it is Allah who will take them to either Jannah or Jahannam. It is Allah's decree that they will go in Jannah or Jahannam. And when somebody goes to Jannah, they are essentially seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they are seeking protection from Jahannam, they are essentially seeking protection from the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are all legitimate, and there's no harm in that. That is all okay. And then, of course, when we talk about Malaika and Kitab wal Nabiyeen, and Al Kitab, because it's an ism jins, like we talked about before, that it refers to all books. That means it refers to all of the divine books. So our belief is in all the books. We believe that the original Torah that was sent to Musa alayhi salam was the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we love it and we respect it. And the original Injil that was sent to Isa alayhi salam, which as it was sent, was the true word of God, was the true book from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we love it and we respect it. But obviously, we know that today the books have been changed. All other books except the Quran, all other divine books that were sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to any and every nation, they have been changed. And we don't know what part in it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what part of it is from the human beings. The only way we have to tell is anything that ties in with the Quran, we accept it. Anything that doesn't tie with the Quran, we are like, Allah knows best. We don't know, and we don't agree, or we don't disagree. I cannot accept this or reject this. Allah knows best, right? So that's the position that we take, and we don't disrespect any of the prophets. So sometimes people get into, again, this kind of a behavior that some people would come and say, you know what, this is a group of people and they made fun, or A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah, may Allah protect us. They said something disrespectful against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you know, why don't you guys retaliate and you should say something against Jesus or against Moses? Of course, we cannot say that, because those, all the prophets are our prophets. We love all the prophets, not just the Prophet sallallahu. Isa alayhi salam is as much our prophet and more so our prophet than other people. We follow Isa alayhi salam and his commands and his things more than even the Christians of today. We follow Ibrahim alayhi salam's footsteps literally more than any other people who follow them. So we for Musa alayhi salam is the most talked about prophet, by name, most mentioned prophet in the Quran. And of course, we love Musa alayhi salam. So we love all the prophets and we love all the books and we love all the angels. As opposed to when we learned about the history of Bani Israel before, they had, they talk of angels, they said, we don't like this angel because this angel brings punishment, and we like only this angel, and we don't like this and everything. And they, some people believed in some prophets and not some and everything. So we learned about all of that, or they increased or decreased the status of the prophets. But for us as Muslims, our faith demands from us that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in the last day, and our motivations are based on that, and we believe in all the angels, all the books, and all the prophets of Allah. And we, when we think of goodness, we have to think of it as a whole body, right? So this belief in all of this is our akida. So the first part of our faith, our goodness, is akida, that we have the right akida, we do things for the right reason. And if you think of a body, a full body, all parts of the body combine and work together, right? And if they are separated, they cannot be a whole person. Like, um, if we have a half cooked meal, then that's not palatable, you know, that's not edible that well. And if you have a body that you know, some parts are not working or anything, it's a handicapped position. And similarly, we cannot have a half cooked or half version of goodness. We need to have a complete, holistic, wholesome view of goodness. What is goodness? And yes, my portion in some might be less and some might be more, but that's fine. I try my best to put my portion in all areas, and I invest in all areas of goodness. Although, yes, I'm a human, and I might find ease in some things a bit more, and then I might invest a bit more in them, and that's all right, as long as I'm investing. At least I believe in all of them, and I endorse all of them, right? So goodness is wholesome goodness, a complete goodness, and it includes striving for it. It includes doing efforts, putting in efforts. And akida, because why is akida the very basis of everything? Because um, anything that anything that is wrong in the akida, which is akida is meaning the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment and the angels and the books and the prophets, any any kind of crookedness or anything, any kind of deviation, even a slight thing in the akida will eventually lead to a deviation, and bigger deviation in goodness, and will lead to a bigger and bigger deviation eventually in the deen as well. It will take us away from goodness, it will take us away from faith. So as long as we want goodness, we have to stick to these things really, really well. If you think about it, it's just like cancer. It starts on one part of the body and then it impacts the rest slowly as well. So if you let it grow, then it will pass through other parts of the body as well. So our root of all our ibadah, of all our goodness, has to be the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the trunk, if you imagine a tree, the roots are the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the trunk is the akhlaq. The trunk is the what we do and our things, you know. And if akida is right, then everything will benefit us. If akida is correct, whether we do small deeds or big deeds, nothing, not even an atom worth, will go to waste. For example, if you think about it, if a child is healthy, if their metabolism is healthy and working well, even small amount of food benefits that child. But if the metabolism is not good, if the person's sick and everything, then you can't give them a full meal or anything. Then nothing benefits their body, because nothing stays in, right? So nothing is benefit. The person has either a diarrhea or something. Then whatever they eat, the nutrients don't get into the body much, and eventually you have to either put an IV or something. So the person is not able to sustain that kind of goodness. They can't get that goodness out of things. Similarly, if our Aqidah is not right, any good deeds that we do don't really benefit. They are just like they're just there, which blow away. Like the trees without any roots, and they're uprooted and they'll go away. And then the second category that we learn, like, okay, once we have our Aqidah right, that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're doing, our intentions are correct, then the next part of the goodness is that we spend from the wealth that we have love for. Despite having love for our wealth, we spend it. Right? So this second category is about hukukul ibad, which is the haq that other creation of Allah have upon us, our mamlat with other people, our dealings with other people. And these things give us reward. Why is this? First of all, thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges that He has put a love for money in us. And that's, yeah, some of us might say, I don't love money, but then we do love things that money can get us. We do like comfort. We do like good food. We do like to be able to travel comfortably, to be able to wear good clothes, to be able to be more presentable, to be able to have hygienic facilities, to be able to, there are a lot of things that money can get, and there is no harm. First of all, love for money in itself is natural and not sinful. Like, again, I'll repeat that. Love for money in itself is natural and not sinful. A person who is truthful cannot deny it, that there is a love for money in all of us. What is sinful is if we let that love for money override everything else in our life. If we let that love for money come to the driver's seat, right? The driver's seat should always be the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and after, and everything else is at the back seat. Yes, they are there, but everything else is at the back seat. They're not at the driver's seat in our life, right? And so when we give, although Allah Ta'ala has put this love inside us, despite that love, when we take that money, or here it does not mean just mal, here does not refer to just wealth. It could also be kind, not just cash. It could also be kind, like we might be feeding somebody. We might work hard and cook some food and then feed some people. We might give our talents to some cause, or we might do something. So anything, right? Or if somebody wants to sleep, for example, then they leave sleep for the sake of Allah, then that has more benefit than somebody who didn't feel sleepy and they just went to do something for the sake of Allah. Because we sacrifice something, our reward increases, right? So it is so beautiful that just by giving us the love of wealth, Allah Ta'ala has increased our reward, and that is also His rahmah, right? That He makes us do these things, and He's put these tendencies in us, and through these tendencies He increases our reward out of the same things that we'd have done anyway, right? So what we do is we give through the love of Allah, not to show people, not for media, charity, photographs. Sadaqah, we do sadaqah, and sadaqah comes from sidq, which is a person who's true in their claim. When we are really true in our claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we really love something, what we do, like, if I really love a dress or something, I really love it so much, it is so pretty, I really want to have it. What will I do? I will spend the money I have, give that money and buy it, right? So when I really love something, I am able to spend money for that easily, right? I put that money down and I get it. Similarly, when I really love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll be able to put that money and give it for charity, and like, okay, Allah, I gave it in your way, right? So um, so, and also in our minds, when we think of goodness, we would think that after belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will talk about salah and zakat and everything. But here Allah Ta'ala has reversed the equation. He said, before even that is your, yes, and again, we don't ignore that either. That is a part of, rituals are a part of our faith, but so is spirituality, so is our good deeds, right? So taking care of people. And what do we give to all these people? We give to our relatives, those who are near to us, dil qurba. We give to the miskin and the orphans, miskin who are stuck, who can't fulfill their own needs, and the travelers, and those people who ask, the sa'ilin, those who ask us for something, and to free slaves. Nowadays, like, we don't find slavery in that sense, but somebody could be imprisoned, somebody could be in debt, somebody could be kidnapped. So we help to free them. That's also a part of helping all these people. And then we can think of all this spending as we are putting something in a long-term savings account. So our money, all we are doing is, nothing's going to waste. We are just putting it from our dunya account into our akhirah account. So we will get all of it, but we'll just not get it now. It's a long-term savings account. Alhamdulillah. So whenever we spend for the sake of Allah on anything, we will get the reward of it. And after that, Allah Ta'ala says that that person not just does that, they also do aqamus salah. So anytime we see salah, we're never told to read salah, we're told to establish salah. Because one of the dictionary meanings, if we go by the dictionary meaning of Arabic dictionary, one of the meanings of salah is also dua, to ask dua from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some people try to take out that meaning that, you know what, salah means dua, so I can just make dua and I don't really need to pray salah and pray namaz and all that stuff. I can just literally make dua and that's good enough, because you see the Quran says salah, the word salah has one of the meanings as dua as well. But when Allah Ta'ala used this established salah, then he makes it very, very clear, and all that ambiguity is removed. That it means that pray salah how Allah Ta'ala taught us through the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? Establish namaz, and you cannot misinterpret it now, right? So you have to do salah and give zakat. And saying zakat separately here, other than the sadaqah, means zakat you're going to give anyway. Sadaqah is beyond that. Like, yeah, sadaqah is beyond your zakat. You will give your zakat, but this sadaqah that you will give to your near ones and travelers and all the orphans and everything, that is beyond that. So beyond, don't just stick to the basic, don't just stick to the mandatory, don't just stick to just the zakat that you have to give more than that. Open your heart, and Allah Ta'ala says that He will give you more. You give and He will give you more, and the zakat will purify your wealth, it will also purify your heart in that sense. And then have akhlaq, have humility and manners. And if you one big part of akhlaq is whenever we make a commitment, we fulfill it. And what are the commitments that we've made? We've made a commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've made the you know, the when Allah ta'ala asked us, am I not your Lord? And we all replied, yes, I am, in the alam arwa, and before we came to this earth. So we replied that. So that is one covenant that we made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we reaffirm that in this world with the when the prophets brought their message to us, and when we learnt of that message, whether the Prophet ﷺ was with us or we have come many, many, many years after him, still when we came to learn of that, when we came to learn about Islam, we renewed our faith, and we said the shahada again, and we made that another promise, and we live up to that promise. Or when we make any promises to other people, when we are married, in our marriages we have made a certain promise to our other hearts, and we made those promises, so we live by those promises. As a doctor, as a teacher, as an employee, we all make certain promises. When we have our driver's license, we made a promise that we will drive carefully. When we take any other licenses or anything, we make certain promises, right? When we go into an agreement, when we buy something, we go make an agreement that I'll pay you this much amount, and we take this thing, right? So all these are promises, and when we make these promises, we fulfill those promises. And what else is the goodness? That we stay patient. We have sabr. We have sabr at the time of suffering. There will be troubles that will come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in says in Surah Al Kabut that don't ever think that you will that you have faith and you will not be tested for it. Don't call yourself believers. You will be tested. You have just accepted faith, but to but then you have to prove it. There will be challenges that will come after you say. And it is so beautiful that one of the some people, some of our previous generations, they understood these things so well. And one of the poets, Iqbal, he used to say that to the effect of, I'm scared of calling myself Muslim. He said, I am scared of calling myself Muslim because I know the troubles that will come with La ilaha illallah. Because when you say La ilaha illallah, you have entered, you have made a commitment, and that commitment will make some demands on you. And I'm scared of those demands. And so basically, it's his way of saying, not that he doesn't want to be a Muslim or anything, what he's trying to say is that this is a huge commitment. This is not a small thing. And I know that I have this huge thing that I've taken up. I'll have to live up to this. I'll have to have sabr with it. And what does sabr means? To tie ourselves, to not be reactionary, to not be over emotional or irritated or frustrated or get abusive or anything when something doesn't go our way. Despite our sickness and troubles, when we get sick or trouble, like when somebody gets sick, don't make life difficult for everybody around you as well, just because you are sick, right? So and supposing somebody is very poor, what will be their sabr? They are poor, yet they don't start earning money by illegitimate means or doing some haram things. That is their sabr, right? So in different situations, we'll have to have sabr to stick to the path that Allah Ta'ala has given us. And it is easy to be good when things are going good and easy, but it is much more difficult to do good when there are tests and when there's certain kind of a loss, or when there's a war situation going on. In a war situation going on, it is hard to have sabr at that time. Whether you're in a winning spree, then you have to have a sabr in the sense that you don't cause destruction or anything at the same time, or when you're losing, to have sabr that Allah Ta'ala will protect me and take care. And if we look at all these kind of goodnesses, we will see that the body and soul work together in being, in all our things, in all things, both the apparent and the hidden. Both of the things work together. There's a spiritual element and there's a ritual element to our deen, and we do all of them. And all of this, the summary of all of this, and what Allah Ta'ala ties all of this is ulaika humul muttaqun. That this is taqwa. And how is taqwa and bir tied together? Taqwa is to protect ourselves. And one of the meanings of the of bir that we saw was when somebody is coming from a turbulent sea to land, what is somebody doing? They're literally protecting themselves. They're able to protect themselves. So this ayah is also about saving ourselves. About without, and again, without taqwa, bir is not really bir, right? It is like a body without soul. And if you don't have taqwa, what happens when there's a body without soul? When somebody dies and their soul goes away, what happens? People come, they all take their own share and they go away with their share and they leave the body like that, right? So what happens when the soul goes away from our worship, from our goodness, from our faith? Then people just take whatever little bit they can get hold of and they leave. And what it leads to is cold, emotional groupism in the name of deen, individualism in the name of deen. And religiosity no more stays religiosity when there's no soul in your ibadat. So there is taqwa and there's soul of our ibadat. They have to work together, and that will come through taqwa. That will come through fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here in all this, all goodness, Allah ta'ala has told us in one ayat, both ethics and rituals. And even if we want to, we cannot separate the two. Like we cannot go one way and leave the other, because Allah Ta'ala has put all of it in one ayat, which we call the ayat bir. And what is the real goodness then? What is the real righteousness? That in our heart there is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is more supreme than anything else. That whatever we do, ma kana lillahi baqiya. That whatever I do for sake of Allah Ta'ala, only that will be left. And what, as Ibrahim alayhi salam said, my salah, my sacrifice, my life, my death, all are for the sake of Allah. And we learn in the Quran that the believers are strong, they're passionate in their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A moment's heart has waves, and then those waves are not just inside the heart, they have a practical implication, they have an impact on the personality. The person gets colored in the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what that happens is then that person does their ibadat and their mamlat in a way that Allah Ta'ala likes it. Their dealings, their akhlaq, their behavior, they all reflect this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this ayah is also a review of Surah Al Asr. How? Wal Asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu, the one who believes, wa amilus salihat, and does good deeds, wa tawasaw bil haqq, and calls people towards haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr, and deals with sabr, right? So all these four things so some scholars have said this ayah is also a review of Surah Al Asr. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to, may Allah Ta'ala increase our love for Him and the Prophet ﷺ every single breath of our lives. May Allah Ta'ala increase that until the point that our Allah Ta'ala, when it's time for us to go, may each one of us go with La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and nothing else. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to do amal on all the good deeds that He teaches us. May Allah Ta'ala make us the al-abrar, and may Allah Ta'ala accept it from us, and may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people that He's pleased with at all times and not that He's displeased with. May Allah Ta'ala help us to be balanced people who are not extremists towards any particular way or cause. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who follow His commandments as the best as we can, and then we keep turning towards Him. We understand our shortcomings and we keep turning towards Him in forgiveness, in tawbah, and we keep asking Him for forgiveness and for guidance all the time. We ask Him to utilize us in His path, and we ask Him to keep guiding us and to keep accepting from us whatever little we are able to accomplish, whatever goodness comes out of this talk or for any other efforts throughout the world for His sake that are going on. Any goodness that comes out of this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, because He is Al-Bar, the source of all goodness. Any good and every good comes from Him alone, and any shortcomings of that were there in this talk today were from myself. I'm human and prone to mistakes. May Allah Ta'ala forgive me, and may Allah Ta'ala accept from me despite my mistakes, and may Allah Ta'ala accept from all of you here, and whether you listen to you right now live or later on in the recording, may Allah Ta'ala accept from everybody and record your time as a time of ibadah for His sake and His sake alone, and may Allah Ta'ala accept it from all of us. Just as Allah Ta'ala united us as sisters in Islam in this world, may Allah Ta'ala reunite us as sisters in Islam under His arsh, under the shade of His arsh, on the day when there'll be no other shade, on the day that we will all be looking for shade, on the day that we all will be in desperate need, the day that is sure to come, and the day that we will need our goodness. May Allah Ta'ala make the scales of our good deeds heavy on the day that the scales will be established, and each one, not an atom worth of our deed will be left unaccounted for. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us for all of our shortcomings, all of our deeds that we start with good and then on the way we got deviated. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us. May Allah Ta'ala keep our intentions pure for His sake. May Allah Ta'ala protect our intentions and our heart at all times. And may Allah Ta'ala then reunite us in Jannatul Firdaus under His arsh. And may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who drink from the hawd of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who are, when the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam meet us, he is proud that we were a part of his ummah, not the people who he would be ashamed that they call themselves Muslim. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people that He loves and who love Him. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.